Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would do a little bit of a productive video for me. I haven't done an unhauling of books for probably going on 4+ years. I have a bunch of books that I've really just outgrown and my reading tastes have really evolved since then. And then I have a bunch of read books that I just don't love that I just need to let go and make room for some new. So I think this video is going to be a little bit of an unhaul. And then I'm going to take you with me when I go to my local used bookstore where they buy books. So I'm going to see what they buy off me, if anything. I do have nearly 50 books here. So I'm hoping they take at least a quarter to half of them. And then I may use that store credit, depending on how much it is, I may use that as store credit to use in the bookstore and buy other books that I'm actually interested in or just kind of keep it for the future. So I thought I would kind of share with you what I'm unhauling. I brought them in here. I've split them up between fiction and nonfiction. Let's go through them rapid fire. I don't want to take too long on each book just because I don't need this to be an hour talking about books that I'm not even keeping. Let's get started. First book, In 5 Years. Really disappointed in this one. I remember when I got it years ago, I was really excited about it. The main character just made some really awful choices, and then the way that it was written, we were supposed to forgive her and root for her happy ending when she did really shitty things, and I just didn't like it. Along the Infinite Sea, honestly, don't remember anything from this book. I think I enjoyed it at the time, but it left no lasting impressions. Riley Sager, I was thinking about keeping this one just because it is the only Riley Sager book that I own, but I read it. I'm never going to reread it, especially thrillers I'm never going to go back to. And it was just fine. It wasn't one of my favorites, so I'm going to let it go. A Secret History of Witches. I read this last year around Halloween time with one of my friends. It's a very long book. It dragged at some points. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. So I think I'm done with it and I will let somebody else read that one. Orphan Train. This is a little mass paperback copy. One, I didn't love the story. I thought it was good, but nothing that I need to keep. And especially a mass market paperback version, I definitely don't need to keep it. A Man Called Uwe. Know a lot of people really love this book and this author. This is the only one I've actually read from Frederick Bachman, but I thought this was just okay. It was a little over the top cheesy for my liking, so I'm gonna let it go. I'm sure somebody else was dying to read this. Buried Beneath the Baobab Tree. I think I got this a long time ago from Book Outlet when I discovered Book Outlet, and I was really trying to hit that $35 free shipping, and I bought a bunch of books that I really didn't know much about. I think this is a decent book. I think it's pretty good. I just don't think I'm ever going to be in the mood to read it, and I haven't picked it up since I got it, so I think I'm going to let it go. In an Instant, when I got this, I thought this was going to be comparable to The Lovely Bones, which is one of my all-time favorite books, because they both surround the beginning of the book being about the main character who is a daughter, kind of a child that gets murdered, and then her family moving on and grieving while she kind of looks on from above. The family did not grieve her that much, and I understand the circumstances of this book. They had just had an accident and they're all trying to survive, but I just felt like there was no emotional weight to her death, and that was, I felt like, such a big part of this book that I just couldn't come back from that, and it was just an okay book. Love in the Time of Cholera. I know this is, I think, a modern classic. I didn't love it. I thought it was just okay. Maybe if I went back and reread it, because I did read this a decade ago, but because I was so disappointed by it, I don't think I'm gonna go back and ever have the motivation to reread it. So, How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. If you watched the last couple of my videos, you've noticed a Matt Haig theme of me just not really jiving with his stories. I think they're oversimplified and too surface level for my liking. I understand they work for a lot of readers. They just don't work for me. I would actually probably unhaul The Midnight Library as well, but I'm keeping it for my end of the year wrap-up video since I read it this year. So I will keep it until I can do that video, and then I will probably unhaul that one as well. So goodbye, Matt Haig. I'm sure someone would love to have this book, though. Meg Wolitzer's Sleepwalking. This was one of those early, really popular, I don't know if it's book two, but book talk books that people were really into. I think it's a YA thriller. It was really underwhelming. When Life Gives You Lemons, never read this one. I actually think I thought this was a nonfiction when I bought it. I don't know why. And then when I realized it wasn't, I never really had the urge to pick it up. So My Plain Jane, this was another one of those book outlet random buys that I saw and I was like, oh, looks interesting, and then never thought about it again. And then I have this little baby copy of Don Quixote. I do want to read this book, just I'm never going to read this version. I can either buy another version or from the library. I don't even know if they'll buy this copy off me since it is such a weird, hokey copy, so we'll see. V.E. Schwab's Vicious. I am not a V.E. Schwab lover, I guess. I just think her books are just okay. I had the same feeling with Addie LaRue. Her books just don't really do much for me. They are page turners and they're entertaining while you're reading them, but I don't remember them afterwards and they don't really leave any lasting effects. So, The Alchemist, this is a very popular book. I read it. I think once you read it, you've read it. I was a little underwhelmed by it, to be honest. I think it's a great message, but I don't know if it needed to be a whole novella about it. It could have been like a quote. So I'm gonna let that one go. Girl You Left Behind. This, I think, also was from Book Outlet. We're seeing a theme here. And this was kind of one of those books that I thought, like, oh, maybe I'll like. I saw the movie, I think it was Me Before You or something like that. I don't really have any desire to read this. Queens of Fenburn. I think I thought this was a standalone. I think this is a prequel to a series, and a series that I'm not ever going to read. So why I don't really want to read the prequel book. So At Night, All Blood is Black. I read this one, short, quick read, very sad, but I didn't love it. Time Traveler's Wife. I think this is so problematic. I don't know why people love this book so much. I can understand loving the movie because it kind of softened some of the awkward stuff that was in this book. I just did not like the age gap. I mean, he would show up when she was like, adolescence, like 5 years old, and he would be like naked and he was like in love with her. And it was just, there's a lot of weird things that I just couldn't really get past in this one, and couldn't get into the romance with that. So goodbye. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. One of those ones where I thought I was going to really, really resonate and be emotional about it, and it was just okay. And a lot of people love this one, and that's okay. But I did not. I thought it was fine. We Were Liars, another one of those really popular BookTube or Book Talk ones from 5-6 years ago. So underwhelming. I think this is becoming a movie now or a show, and yeah. A Thriller, I Let You Go. I remember some things about this, but I remember not loving it, and I thought it was okay. So I think I wanted to read this author. I think she's a big thriller author, Claire McIntosh. And then I have two thrillers here that I have not read. I'm kind of not really grabbing thrillers the last year or so. I think I'm going to try to read some more thrillers that I own around the Halloween time, maybe do a fun little vlog, but these are probably not going to be the ones that I'm going to reach for. And if I don't, then when am I ever? So I'm going to part with these ones. The Scythe trilogy. I read book 1 and book 2. I liked book 1. I thought book 2 was pretty good. Never had any motivation to go to book 3. I think I started reading it and I got to like 50 pages in and I was like not jiving with it. I wasn't in the mood. And now that it's been so much time that has passed, I can't foresee myself ever going back and reading this third one, especially knowing I'd have to refresh and remind myself what happened in the first two. Somebody else can enjoy this series because I do think it's enjoyable. I like the premise, but I'm just done with it. I'm not gonna go back to it or revisit it at this point. Hated this book, Cherry. I think this actually got turned into a movie with Tom Holland. It's about a soldier who has a lot of PTSD and does a lot of fucked up things. I didn't like the main character, and you don't have to like the main character, but he just did a lot of shitty things, and I didn't feel like there was any redeemable qualities about him for me to enjoy it. So I just felt like it was a book about somebody who's dealing with a lot of trauma and then shoving a lot of trauma into other people, and that was it. So this was a random pickup that I got from like an Amazon bookstore years and years ago, and I got it because I thought the cover was cool. And then I read the back and I was like, could be interesting. Horrible. The Woman in the Window. This was really popular. I thought it was just meh. I didn't like it. And then Circe. I know a lot of people love this book. I thought it was good, but I didn't love it. Also, I don't want to keep it on my shelves because it's not necessarily a cover or anything that I find beautiful that I want to keep on my shelves. So those are the fiction books. So let me grab my nonfiction stack. It's less than the fiction books. So let's do that. Okay, so nonfiction. Let's start Love Warrior by Glennon Doyle Melton. I was going through a bad breakup and I really needed this book at the time. It served its purpose, but I've moved on and past that. So, The Light Between Us. I think this is a psychic medium who helps solve crimes. When I got this book, I thought it was something totally different. And then when I read it, I was like, oh, it's not what I wanted to read. So it was fine, but there was some things in it that I just didn't really agree with. A Whole New Mind. This is my husband's nonfiction. I am getting it off our shelves because I don't even know why we have it. Freakonomics. This had its moment. I think I actually read this for a college class. It's very interesting. It's very, very interesting, but I think there is some bunk science in here. I listened to If Books Could Kill, the podcast, and they go through a lot of really popular nonfiction books and kind of debunk some of the things about it. So they did a big episode on Freakonomics, so it kind of made me rethink this book among a lot of other books too, which I think is great because they have more knowledge about citing and sources and backing up a lot of claims that these types of books make. So definitely check that podcast out if you're interested in those types of things. Your Money or Your Life. I made it a New Year's resolution one year to become financially literate and figure out where to invest my money and what to do with my money as an adult. I think I got to a certain part in the book where it was like, all right, get out your pen and paper and write down your money and do this math and I was literally laying in bed reading this and I was like, no, I will not. So I never continued reading it because I was too dang lazy. So as you can tell, my financial literacy through this book did not work out, but I did figure out things in other ways. And this was probably in like 2015. And then The Power of Habit. This is one of my husband's nonfiction books. I don't have any urge to read it. He's read it, so. Tina Fey, Bossy Pants. I think I bought this in an airplane bookstore as an airplane read. It was fine. It wasn't as funny as I thought it was going to be. And it's a mass market paperback, so I don't really want it. The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. At the time when I read this, I thought it was really interesting. I probably read it in like 2016. 2017 maybe. I don't remember much about it, but it was literally about how having quick information at your fingertips has really altered the way that we read, the way that we think, the way that we process information. So it was really interesting. Be interested to see updated information now that this book is not 10 years old, but getting there, because I'm sure there's a lot of new science that has come out since. When Breath Becomes Air. It's a memoir about a doctor who gets terminal, I think, brain cancer or terminal lung cancer, and basically the last bit of his life, and he wrote this book as kind of his last thoughts. I thought it was good, but it's not one that I really reach back to and think that really hit me. It is really sad though. Then I have Malcolm Gladwell books. Same thing. I have David and Goliath, The Tipping Point, and Blink. Same things with these books. From the same comment I made about Freakonomics, a lot of this science here has kind of been debunked and not really valid science. It's very anecdotal. And the way that Malcolm Gladwell storytells is great because he's really able to like bring you in and help you understand these concepts. But the stuff that he is explaining aren't always factually backed up. And the way that he explains it makes you think that it's true when it's not necessarily true. So at the time when I read these, I thought it was really smart and I really enjoyed them. But now looking back, I can see the flaws and the holes in a lot of these. So I'm going to let them go. The Talent Code. This was another popular nonfiction book a few years back. I think I read this like on the elliptical or something at the gym over a span of a week, and I thought it was interesting, but I can't remember anything about it. The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. I really like Shonda Rhimes. I like her story. I thought this was interesting. It was a little bit cheesy, but aren't these always usually pretty cheesy? So I've read it. I enjoyed it. But The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I did not read this all the way through because you really get the message in like the first 10% of this book. It does not need to be a full book. I guess if somebody really wants to read this and really hit it home and they really find it valuable, then great, but I didn't need it. So, and it's kind of a certain type of writing that you're either really motivated by it or you find really cringe. And then last, Inventing Joy. This is about a woman who was a mom and she kind of made all these different inventions and followed her heart. And it was a good read. I think I got it as a present one year and I read it and it was enjoyable, but I will never pick it up and reread it. So anyways, that is my nonfiction stack. So as you can see, I think it's almost 50 books. So it'll be really interesting to see when I take it to the used bookstore. I think I'm going to do it in the next week or so, and I'll take you along with me and let you know how much they offer me. That's hoping they buy some of these. Now, they could totally tell me no for all of these or only take a couple. So it is my first time selling to this bookstore. So I have no idea what they're going to take and what they're not going to take. So we will see. So I'll see you when we get there. Okay, so I am at the bookstore now. This bookstore is not super close to me, but not super far. I have all of the books with me and I'm about to carry them in, and it's like gonna be over 100 degrees outside, so that'll be fun. But let's see how much money I can get for these books. I am hoping there's almost 50 books. So if they take half of them and then offer me like $1 or $2 per book, I'm hoping I can walk out ideally with like 40 to 50 bucks of credit. And then I think they give you more store credit if you use it in store versus cashing it out. So we shall see. I'm hoping they're not super busy so that it doesn't take a long time, but I'll let you know. I'll update you as I go. Okay, so this is inside the bookstore. This is the fiction section. As you can see, quite a lot of variety. They told me it was going to take about an hour to look through the books that I was there to sell, so that was fine because I was ready to browse. And I always start in the fiction section because that's my fave. And then this wall is the large thriller section, and there's a little horror section at the end, but mostly like Tom Clancy's and those types of books. This, I found a copy of The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. She also wrote Enlightenment. That's a shortlisted for the Booker Prize this year, so kind of had my eye on that. I found some Lauren Groff. I haven't read any Lauren Groff, but have been kind of interested to check her out. I feel like a lot of stuff I see about her is hit or miss. And then I saw An American Marriage, which I'm actually really interested in reading, and the price was not bad, but I knew I wasn't ready to read it right away, so I didn't want to just buy it just to buy it. I did see this Dennis Johnson book. I haven't read anything from him either, but I do know he's a pretty famous writer. I don't know if he's my kind of writer, but I'm definitely interested in maybe trying one of his books. I saw the Book of Goose, which I've seen quite a lot on BookTube and Book Talk. It was $7.99. I haven't read anything from this author, but I've heard it's quite polarizing, hit or miss. I saw this copy of We Cease to Understand the World. I'm interested in it, but it was $9.99, which is a little too pricey for a used book for me, even though it is very nice quality. I also came across a Graham Norton book, and if you watched my last fall releases video, you saw that I was talking about a Graham Norton fall release, and I did not know, but he has quite a few books actually. Here's another one. And then I kept looking and I saw a copy of The Candy House by Jennifer Egan. I really want to read this, but it was a signed copy and it was $15, which isn't that much, and it's a signed copy, but it was just a signed slip, which kind of deterred me. If it was actually like signed on the page, I might have been more interested. This is the history section. It's mostly military history, and yeah, that's it. Hello. So we are back home now. I was gonna record my thoughts about the used bookstore experience, but it was like 100 degrees. My car was so hot. I did not want to sit in my car and do that with the air conditioning down. So I thought I would just come home and share kind of what happened. So I went in. From what I'd read online about this used bookstore, they don't offer you a lot. You're getting offered like $1 or $2 per book, if that. And that makes sense because the books range in there from like, as you saw, like $4, like $2.99, $3.99 to like $10 at the most. I mean, if it's over $10, it's probably an autographed copy or a first edition. So that kind of makes sense. I did see a really cool Kindred signed edition by Octavia Butler, but I didn't record it because it was in like a glass case and I had to like take it out of the glass case and then try to get my phone out, and it was just too much, and I was trying to kind of film incognito. That was really cool. I think that they are off. I think they were charging like $250 for that. I think it was a first edition Kindred with her signature, and it was a pretty good signature. Inside, it was a paperback copy and it was kind of yellowed and not the greatest quality, but again, it was a first edition sign. So I don't think that that was too insane, especially for an author that has passed. So no new signatures or autographs are ever going to come from that author. But anyways, I went off on a tangent. So I went in there. They said there thankfully there was nobody selling books at the moment because it's kind of a first come first serve basis, and I didn't want to get stuck behind somebody else, and they kind of do it all by hand. So she said it was going to take about an hour for the amount of books that I had, which I was fine with. Actually ended up only taking like 30, 40 minutes because another one of her coworkers came and started helping her. And from what I could tell, they were basically just scanning all the titles, I think checking their inventory to see if they already had them. And then I'm sure they were checking some kind of database or like online looking at Pango or something to kind of see what they could charge customers. They told me after like 30, 40 minutes that I was ready to go. So I went over and they took about, I would say 70% of my books. So there was probably, I want to say like maybe 10 books that they didn't take, and they said either they already had them or they just didn't have the audience for them, which made sense. I was actually really surprised because they did buy that little copy of Don Quixote that I had that I wasn't even going to take because I didn't think they'd buy it. But I was like, you know what? They do sell weird stuff there, so maybe they'll take it. And they did actually take it. They ended up offering me $16 and some odd cents for cash out. And it was really weird because they offered me like odd cents, like it was like 16.57 or something weird like that. And I was like, where are we getting these cents from? And I'm like, are they offering me like 99 cents for a book and it's adding up weird? And I didn't really get the tally per book. They just were like, we're offering you this much for this stack. So I thought that was kind of interesting because it wasn't like we're offering you $10 or $15. They're offering me like, yeah, like I said, some odd cents. And so they must be adding up like 50 cents or, I mean, 99 cents or odd cents. You know what I mean? And then they said if I wanted to use store credit, it was $37. So I was like, I will just use store credit because I do go there every once in a while and peruse, mostly their fiction section. They do have a little poetry section and a history section, but most of the books there, I would say they have the huge wall of like thriller and it's like thriller and like I would say like adult commercial thriller. Like you have your David Baldacci's and your authors that are like that put out like 10 books a year. They had a huge shelf of that, and then they had a bunch of mass market paperbacks, which I'm not really interested in buying those, but they were really cheap. So if you just want to read a book, it was really affordable. And then they had a huge military history section, which was kind of random. And then they had a big like cookbook children's area. I'm not really interested in that kind of stuff, so I mostly just stick to the fiction shelves and then some of the poetry and some of the thriller, depending on what that is. But anyways, so they offered me $37 in store, which I thought was really fair. I actually ended up finding a book, I think it was $5.99 while I was looking that I was interested in. So I was like, okay, I'll just buy this with my credit. After that, I think I have about $30 in store credit there. And I definitely am planning on going back in the next coming weeks and kind of seeing what they get. Obviously, they get what people are bringing in to sell them. So I did see a couple book of the month editions in there and some other like random books that I was like, okay, we got some book talk girlies locally. It was really fun. I think I've already inserted some clips to kind of give you the vibe. I didn't take a ton of video just because I was like nervous. I didn't know if you were allowed to. I didn't want to make a scene. So I took some incognito video on my iPhone. And I am planning on sharing all the used books that I got in the coming video, including the one I got just recently after I sold those books. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, thank you so much for coming along with me. It was kind of a different sort of video. I didn't really know what to expect, but I'm really glad I got to unhaul such a large portion of books that I know are gonna help fund that used bookstore because there's not really a lot of used bookstores around me. That's really the only one besides like Goodwill and then, new bookstores. So I'm glad that they went there. And then with the remaining books, I'm probably going to donate them to my library because there is a donation box there. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.